when you got your mind and your body connected to where your brain is monitoring your body systems, your muscles are relaxed, your breath is not short and shallow, your thoughts are not erratic and chaotic, and you're literally presenting to the horse something so true and honest in your being, they will pick up on that, and then they will be drawn out of curiosity to it because they feel it, they understand it. It's harmony, it's an agreement.
There are healers on this planet with the power to soften the suffering of mankind, yet they have remained in the recesses of the world, abused, discarded, and labeled as trash. This is The Touch of a Mustang. I am your host, Shalise Clough, and I'm here to tell the story of wild horses, Mustangs, and the humans who are discovering and sharing their gifts while working to protect their well-being and preserve their spirit, so this divine power won't be lost. Join us on this quest with the Wild Mustang. Justin Dunn is a nationally recognized trainer and clinician that teaches Mustang horsemanship and is the owner of American Mustang School, where he provides suicide prevention and life coaching programs to the military and public. In 2023, he released his award-winning book, A Horse to Guide Me. Justin developed a bitless bridle, one I personally use, which is available and manufactured by Weaver Leather. Justin's mission is to promote mental health and mental awareness while preserving and utilizing the gifts of America's wild horses. Justin helps his clients change their mindset to find greater fulfillment and peace. American Mustang School has a 100% success rate in their suicide prevention program. Justin owns 9 horses consisting of BLM Mustangs and rescue horses, some once considered untrainable. Justin, thanks for being here. I'm super excited about this conversation. This is a bit of a full circle moment for me because you were one of the trainers that really helped me with my first Mustang, Sylvanie. And now it's probably 8 years later. And now you're helping me launch this podcast with the second episode and the first guest on it. So thank you for all your support and for being here. And I'm really excited to talk about the work that you do.
Man, thanks for having me, Shalise. This is fun. This is awesome. I'm so happy to see you doing a podcast and all of your remarkable progress with your Mustangs just gives me chills, actually. I love it. And that's what I want for everyone.
It's been an awesome journey that I never could have anticipated. And honestly, there were times I thought about giving up. I mentioned this to you before. I got a really stuck place when I met you. And you are the one who kind of reassured you can train this horse if you want to. And that was huge for me.
Oh, good.
So thank you. To start off, can you just kind of share with everybody a little bit about how you got involved in horses and especially how did Mustangs become such a huge part of your life?
So my background with horses started far back as I could remember. I was probably 5 years old and I had a little horse, little pony. His name was Chico. And I went to him to basically seek refuge or cause gaps in, dominant, repetitive thoughts that I was having due to my parents divorcing. And that's not a fun thing to go through for anyone. So especially as a child in the behavioral development stages of a 5-6-year-old, horses really just made the world normal to me. Kind of fast forward to Mustangs, they did it again for me as an adult, and they command an undivided attention from me personally. So getting my first Mustang, I was intrigued, as I explained in the book, but my second Mustang just captured so much more of my attention, my being. It took me 14 days to touch him. And he had been handled before, but very negatively. He looked at it as the humans were a threat and just didn't want any part of it. So for me to invest the time it took to touch him, that very first touch, something happened. And it's a little difficult to describe, but the first time I touched him, I knew right then that there was something much bigger than both of us that I wanted to explore. It's kind of like the unknown. No fear came into play. Nothing human as far as limitations existed in that very moment of that first touch. So I was hooked.
There is something undescribable about it. Do you think part of you recognizing that was because it was difficult, that he wasn't maybe as easy as some of the other horses, or you couldn't just go up and touch him right away?
Yeah, I think what happened is they cause us to develop an awareness if we want to continue to the engagement. I had to present to him something worthy for him to even want to be with. And in doing that, I had to look at myself and what exactly am I presenting? Why is the cause and effect taking place here? And I should say, today I know a whole lot more than I did back then. And each horse since then has prepared me for the next horse, next human, which leads to today's. That initial contact with that second Mustang, discovery about myself, and that was looking inward and then presenting outward, and observing feedback from the Mustang, from the horse, and being willing to make changes and present again and develop what we call a feedback loop. But I must say, I didn't know any of these things that we're getting ready to discuss. I went into it as a erratic, chaotic thinker, erratic, chaotic actions, and thinking I had it together, thinking I knew, what I was doing. But the actual clarity through engagement, I started to realize, oh my gosh, I'm not. I don't have control of myself. How am I supposed to, get control of this Mustang, which I later learned I couldn't control him. He's too powerful.
That's something that really surprises me. That experience of not maybe having that control is very typical of people and working with horses and Mustangs in particular. What do you think it was that allowed you to recognize that maybe it wasn't the horse to blame? Maybe it was something that you personally needed to change? And I've even experienced that myself. A lot of times we think, oh, I need to, get different equipment, or I need to, just find different ways to be in control to maybe like fix the horse, instead of coming and looking at ourselves and figuring out like, oh, maybe this is something with me that needs fixed, not the horse.
Well, I've learned that the things that are most obvious are the hardest to see right in front of our eyes. Whenever I look at a Mustang horse today, I'll look at them, but then I look at them again for what they really are. And they show me how to look inward and align myself, and then properly present, observe feedback from them, willingness in myself to change, and then present again to get desired results. If I try to force or take anything, the alignments are off and the horse responds. If they're way off, he'll react. And I can explain the difference as we go on. But whenever I would go inward and align four things within myself, the horse willingly flowed to me or willingly came with me. If I got out of alignment within myself, the horse would resist or definitely show signs of resentment. So in order to really create willingness in the horse to present or give feedback and desirable results, I had to align four things. Four things that I have to align today, and which I learned over the course of 20 years. Four things. Two pathways of communication: an inner pathway and an outer pathway. Inner pathway is obviously, for me, it's obvious that I have to control my thoughts, control my emotions. The outer is control my attitude and control my actions. When those four things are in alignment and presented correctly, not forcing or not taking, the horse will come right over to me. No problem. So that's probably the best answer for that question.
This seems like it's something you recognized a little bit in your first pony, Chico, that the way you approached him really changed that. I mean, you were a young kid when that was happening. That's not usually insights people get, do you think? Or do you think that's something that kind of naturally comes with the horse?
Well, I do know that as a human species, we're born into this world disoriented. We're the only species that way. So, exposure to a horse from 5 years old, I started really discovering what I can look back on now as far as reflectively thinking about it. I discovered about 10 years of age, go look inward. What if I didn't know what to do, what would I do? And I would just go inward and think, what should I do? And then I would come up with an answer and present it. In other words, example, I wouldn't know how to lead a horse, this particular horse, when he didn't want to go. I didn't know what
Yeah,
to do.
which is a
Uh,
problem I think lots of people have with
yeah,
horses, like trying to get them to do what we want them to do.
yeah. So I would pull on him, and he would pull on me, and then of course, we know who's going to win that tug of war.
Yeah.
And then I would get scared because I didn't want him to run away, and then I couldn't catch him, and just all these little thoughts go through a 10-year-old's mind. So I just start singing to him, and then he would just follow me wherever I went. Looking back on it, I know that I changed my thoughts, my emotion, my attitude, and ultimately my action. I wasn't pulling on him. I'd just walk away and he'd come with me, willingly.
Hmm.
So that was probably the first discovery without really knowing how to explain it to anyone. But looking at it today, I can explain it very clear.
Did you recognize that as a 10-year-old, or is that something you kind of realized later on that what you were changing when you were doing that was the way you were thinking about the situation, the emotions you were having about it, changing from, this intense desire and need to have them with you to letting go of that control? Is that something you realized at a young age, or did it come over time?
Well, it'd be neat to give you one answer, like yes. However, it's not that simple.
Yeah.
It was a glimpse into the future, and
So
it
kind of
was
the start of it.
yeah, it was a start. So the compounding effect is, the law of compensation, time going on. Uh, it reaffirmed that initial practice that I did with that little horse that, okay, I'm on to something. Now, I didn't just pick it up and keep on going from 10 years old. There was a lot of, I'll call it outward influences or distractions
Yeah.
in that. But yeah, as I'm sitting here today looking back on it, yeah, that's when I first probably say, yes, I discovered that's what we got to do. We got to go inward, get in alignment with those four things, present. And when it is in harmony or agreement with the horse and nature, things will flow to us in an attraction. We attract it at that point. So,
Yeah.
like I'm a human, and well, obviously a horse is a horse, and they're strong, but we share a lot of the same things. We actually share the four things: thoughts, emotions, attitude, action. Whatever they're thinking, they're reflecting in their body through action.
Hmm.
They're nonverbal communication, but it's still the same.
Like, you didn't start becoming a horse trainer at 12 years old. There was a lot in between there. And you talk about with both Chico and then the second Mustang you had, how they helped you um, to get out of your head, out of your racing thoughts.
Yeah, because what it is when we're disoriented and then we're influenced by social constructs, we could just call it, or where we live, our environment.
By social constructs, you're talking about the expectations around us.
Yeah, like go to school, get a degree, get a job, retire, die. Yeah, as a simple way to say it. Um,
Hmm.
we develop, or I'll just speak for myself. I developed doubts, I developed fears, and it didn't really have coping mechanisms for those fears or those doubts. Horses, they don't care about those things. They don't care about status, race, fortune, fame, none of that stuff. The only thing they care about is how much we care about them. In order to prove it to them, we have to care about ourselves and present what we expect. So I wanted to start paying attention to how I thought they perceived me and how I perceived myself, and how far apart were those. So the development of awareness starts to take place, because outside influences definitely have an effect on us, but we have a choice based on what we choose to think about a thought that pops in, or an emotion from that thought, and then ultimately an action. In practicing horsemanship, we get to develop the ability or exercise a muscle that we all know we have, we just don't know how to exercise it, and get real-time feedback, nanosecond feedback from a horse. A Mustang is very good at this because they're acutely aware of their surroundings. They are think to survive beings. They analyze everything, life and death, so it's very real to them. They abide in laws of nature, so that way they can sustain life efficiently, effectively, generation after generation. If they break those laws of nature, it's usually penalty of death. See, we can drift out of those. We don't have to stay within those or abide in those. We actually do things to kind of defy those laws. I mean, we build an airplane to defy gravity. We parachute to defy gravity. Horses, they understand those, and they don't really try to do that. So whenever we want to present ourselves to them, we have to kind of let things go. Doubts, fears, preconceived notions, the past, dwelling on the past, anticipating the future. We have to bring ourselves into the moment and present something true and honest to them. And that is the most efficient, effective way to develop a relationship, and definitely a willing partner in the relationship. Whenever I would align with the laws of nature, with the spiritual element to them, and create an agreement or harmonize with the horse, they flow right to me. The information becomes available. They'll flow right to me because they see and feel the alignments. They can look at a person and perceive them as something that is going to be of benefit. So they'll come to that. If it's no benefit, they rebel.
We've got a discount code for you to make it a little easier for you to get gear for you and your horse. Justin and I both use a number of products from Weaver Leather, including the Justin Dunn bitless bridle. Use code JustinD10 when you check out at weaverequine.com to get 10% off your entire order. Horses really don't care about their outside characteristics, but they do seem acutely aware of our fears and doubts. And like you say, the way we perceive ourselves. So those worries that we have about ourselves, the horse seems to catch on to. I know in my experience, anxiety that I had about things going a particular way or worries seemed to reflect a lot about in my inability to do what I was wanting to do with my Mustang when we were brand new.
Yeah, see, horses, Mustangs, we'll just stick with Mustangs. They analyze things life and death. So they're acutely aware of their surroundings. They think to survive. So if we're paying attention to an artificial barrier is what it is, it's restriction in our mind, causes tension in our bodies. They're going to pay attention to that. If our shoulders are tense and they're up about 3 millimeters, if our breathing is short and shallow, if our thoughts are racing and we're nervous, they just are aware of it. It's not like that's a bad or a good. It's just an awareness. When we present to them and then they respond in a manner, I use an interactive system to get predictable results. So whenever I present to them, they'll respond in a manner to, based on the individual, cause me the effect of presenting differently, being willing to change. And in doing that interactive system for predictable results, goals are there, but I don't have any specific goal I'm trying to achieve in a specific timeline. So that frees up a lot of pressure, a lot of stresses. The energy, which is information, can actually flow in a circular feedback loop between myself and the horse. I'm going to add one more element. When you got your mind and your body connected to where your brain is monitoring your body systems, your muscles are relaxed, your breath is not short and shallow, your thoughts are not erratic and chaotic, and you're literally presenting to the horse something so true and honest in your being, they will pick up on that, and then they will be drawn out of curiosity to it because they feel it, they understand it. It's harmony, it's an agreement. So whenever that happens, things go great, obviously. When we're not in alignment and we're presenting, things don't go so great. That's when it's like, okay, good. I get some feedback to make a change and make a different presentation. And that's the learning. That's the how. That's the Tao. That's the process. And that's what is so hard to define because I can't create that energy or information and I can't destroy it. It's unique to each individual and horse that shares it. And when it's recognized, and then that horse, they know. And then the partnership or relationship grows into something so wonderful that, if we didn't have horses, we'd all be really in trouble. So
That's something that makes it so that you can do what you do so well is that you said, something goes wrong and you say good. That is not the approach that most people take with their horses. They probably take the approach, something went wrong, now I need to fix it. Whereas you're taking that as information.
absolutely. If it was easy and horses would just, I do something, they give me feedback, and there's no discovery, there's no unknown, it's just cut and dry, I would get bored myself and probably move on. But the advanced intricacies of horsemanship, the more I learn about it, the more I realize I don't know. And that keeps me curious, that keeps me wanting and desiring. And whenever you go into it with that mindset, horses pick up on it and they want to give you what you need the most. They're willingly ready to reveal to you the most beautiful, true, and honest things they possess. And they're all different. I've never met an identical horse. They're all different. There's always gems to mine. There's new discoveries to be made. And it's not just from the horse, it's about ourselves. We go inward, we present outward, and then we repeat it based on information the horse gives us. And, I call it a feedback loop. We also do that with the one who spoke all things into existence. It's no different. The horse and us were created by the same being or intelligence that created all things. So, in alignment with that, a spiritual realm comes into play. And, I think the Native Americans, they had it down really well. And definitely something there for us all to learn. The thing that I really love the most about that spiritual element is we'll get information when it's the right time, when we need it the most, when we're ready to receive it, when we've aligned everything and we've opened enough to where it can flow right in. It's not forced, it's not taken. We're doing things to attract it, the information, the energy, however a person wants to describe it. But the horses, they know, they pick up on it, and they actually help us get it faster than if we could try to do it on our own.
Yeah, I really love that. I definitely, when I got my Mustang, was not planning on all the lessons that I would learn from her. And you talk about, God or our creator, and how that be all in alignment. And I know for me, like, it almost seems like there's kind of an awareness that something was coming down the pipeline in my life, and there was a horse there. And would teach me the lessons I needed, in my personal life as I was trying to figure them out. That's something that's been really powerful to me is how that all comes together.
It's life. It's a life. It's beautiful, and we weren't made to come here and suffer. The horses don't suffer. They're enlightened. No struggle. That's kind of what I defined enlightenment is no struggle. And they're just fine out there eating grass, doing their thing. when we invite them into the human element, there's a awesomeness to it. And presenting ourselves, almost coming out of the human element that we've been, I guess we've been brainwashed to do. We get to drop all of that temporarily or forever and truly present ourselves to another living being that isn't corrupted, especially a wild Mustang. And I got to clarify this real quick. When I say wild Mustang, I don't mean not gentle. They're gentle. We don't gentle a wild Mustang. They're already gentle. Wild just means uninterrupted by man. It's kind of like a wild flower. We didn't plant it. It grows wild. It's nature, grown. Same thing with the wild horse. So inviting them into the human element, done correctly, we are going to probably make the biggest transition or transformation in order to create this relationship that we are so desiring. So when I say wild Mustang, it's not like I go and take this horse and gentle them because they're crazy or anything like that. It's just that they abide in laws of nature. And if a person doesn't understand even what those laws are, it's going to be real tricky to get anything accomplished. And that's where a lot of people make mistakes trying to force compliance and go against laws of nature that horse was born into and abides by. And then the results are, not to the satisfaction of the person. So then they label the horse a certain label, generally, wrong. And it's not fair. So I just want to point that out as far as when we're talking about wild Mustangs, they're grown in nature, and we have to invite them into the human element. And in order to create a relationship, we've got to be willing to change and pretty much go their way rather than expect them to come our way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's really interesting the way you discussed enlightenment and it being the absence of struggle, because it seems like a lot of the time when we bring horses into our lives, we also unfortunately kind of bring that struggle if we're not willing to learn from them, let go of a lot of the rules of horsemanship, is what I at least have found. A lot of the things I thought were the ways that you were supposed to do it didn't work because it did create struggle. And it wasn't really until I stepped back and thought, okay, this isn't working. Or sometimes even like, I just don't feel good about this advice I'm getting. It just doesn't feel right, that struggle would disappear.
Well, through traditional horse training practices, it's misleading. What works on one horse isn't going to work on another. Cookie cutter mentality is really ineffective in the long run. Goal oriented mindsets, you're definitely going to get into trouble because, winners and losers, they both have goals. Winners have a interactive system for predictable results, and the goals come. But if we follow a system to get those predictable results, it's so much less stress. It's so much more engagement or clarity through engagement than rather goal focused or goal oriented. People, we'll just say, focus on getting a saddle on a horse in a certain amount of time. And I fell into that in the early days. And like, well, okay, I got this goal and I've got to do it within a certain amount of time. Well, I would focus on that so much, I would skip a bunch of stuff, and there'd be holes in training, we call it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this horse doesn't even want to stand here and relax, much less let me put a saddle and pad on his back.
Yeah.
So the whole point is develop a system. And, it's got to be an interactive system because they're two living creatures, me and the horse. And then we've got to do it to where we follow the system and get predictable results. And then that'll gauge how much time it'll take. I mean, it actually just takes the time it takes. And you'll also find that it's a lot shorter than what you would initially think, because tensions in the body are released, restrictions in the mind. And when I say restrictions in the mind, I'm talking about doubt, fear, anxiety, confusion. All of those are just restrictions in the mind that cause tension in the body. And when the brain is monitoring body systems, it's saying, get away from this.
Yeah.
And dependent on the Mustang or the person, their survival instinct, however strong that is, will generally determine how difficult it's going to be to try to force compliance. And when you have an interactive system, you find out how acute that survival instinct is. Played with hundreds of Mustangs, and their range is all over the place. And then it changes as time goes on. I'll have a horse. We talk about Harley. He was labeled as untrainable by BLM. And the very guy that kind of signed off because of who I was, he told me that. He's like, if it's anybody else, this horse would go to long term. He wouldn't go with you. And that's a little Harley, a little black horse. He was going under panels, over panels. He's so scared, running from everything.
Wow.
And they said, that we see thousands of horses come through Canyon City. This particular horse, we would not okay him to go with just anybody. But I'm here to tell you, I offloaded him at my house in my round pen. He shook like, thank you for busting me out of jail. And then I was riding in 5 days.
Yeah.
I followed an interactive system to get predictable results. I didn't force compliance. I didn't force submission with pain or fear of pain. I asked him questions, which questions are pressure, and release of pressure is a thank you. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I always start at a 1, ask with pressure, and then increase the intensity of the pressure to get the desired response, and then release it as a thank you, and then wash, rinse, repeat. And that's how it goes forever. So I never use bits or spurs or anything that would cause a restriction in that horse's mind or tension in his body. So he doesn't know to fear me. He doesn't know that there's pain. There's never any of that used. So he doesn't even know how strong he is. 5-year-old kids can lead him around, and they bump on the lead rope. He knows to come to that. It's not like I tied him to a truck and forced him to do it. That never is good. Inviting them into the human element correctly, and then following this interactive system to get these predictable results, and you find out about the individual and then make those necessary changes for that individual.
When you talk about your interactive system and also like your feedback loop, you're basically saying that it's almost like a conversation, not verbally, right?
Correct.
But you do something, you look and see how the horse responds, and then you adjust according to that.
Yes. I designed a series of 5 questions and follow rules and philosophies and beliefs and apply those as needed per individual. And whenever that interactive system is utilized, the horses can relate. They're creatures of habit. They understand processes. So following specific system and allowing the processes to take place, they recognize very quickly that they have a voice. And in those questions, I'm asking them what they need for me to help them grow and develop into the horse that I desire, into the horse that they want to be. I want them to work in their sweet spot. So I don't want to ask a horse to do something that he's not capable of doing, of course, but not comfortable doing either. It's just not going to work in what I do. At American Mustang School, we're promoting mental health and wellness.
Yeah.
If the horse isn't mentally healthy and well, it's going to be very difficult for me to add in a human and allow that horse to be a teammate or team member and depend on them to do things where I fall short. So when I interact with a horse, yes, the conversation is I'm asking questions and I'm making changes within myself to present to them to get desirable results, because that gives them a voice. It's not that I'm trying to force them to comply and do what I say. It's, I want to ask you to help me, come with me. Let's do this mission together. And then, yeah, you're showing me a better way. Cool. Let's do it that way. Because why would I want to inhibit that horse's ability to go and pinpoint what that person needs the most and not give them? Because I did something to create a restriction in the mind or a tension in the body, and they're worried about me rather than performing at their highest level to do what they're called to do in this life. I understand that I can't interrupt that. I can't irritate that. I can't obstruct it, is probably the best word.
Yeah. One thing that I think is super important that you said is talking about a timeline. I know, especially with Mustang, that was one thing when I first got my mare that probably really created a lot of unnecessary struggle for me, because I didn't know much about Mustangs. You get in the Mustang world, first thing you see are the extreme Mustang makeovers and all these people that are training their horses in 30, 60, 90 days. They're just fantastic. And so for me, I started comparing myself to that. And that was a huge place where I would start feeling like I couldn't do it, like I wasn't good enough, rather than this is brand new virtually, and I have learning to do, and that's going to take more time. And also, I think it depends too on the way we want to do it. For some reason, some horses will react okay to force. They are pretty compliant, can force compliance with some horses. Um, but with my first mare, that wasn't the case at all. She made it pretty clear to me, you're going to have to figure something else out, because I'm not just going along with what you want. Letting go of that timeline. Let, and I would even say it's still maybe good to have goals, but to not put a timeline on it.
That's a lot to unpack as far as what time we have. But summarizing, it's based on the individual horse, and it's based on the individual person, and then the connections that are made there. So yes, you can force compliance, and then
Yeah.
time and memory come into play. But different horses will tolerate different levels and degrees of force compliance. Yes, of course, I could go make a
Mm-hmm.
horse do what I needed to do in a 30-day period, no problem. And if I'm training for a client and my goals are to do that and make money, and then the horse takes second place, yeah, no problem. But when I follow philosophies of the horse comes first, everything else second, I can't do it. I'd be breaking my own rules, and then I wouldn't be creating the willingness in the individual horse that I'm after. And there's going to be some residue left from then on that's probably going to be a negative at some point. So you said something about extreme Mustang makeovers and comparing. See, that's competition. A competitive mindset will always do that. In my horsemanship, I want creative mindset. So I don't have anything to prove.
Yeah.
The I've done Mustang makeovers, and I looked at it in two ways. I'm like, well, I can go in here and I can put this horse second place. I can train. I can get them doing anything judges up there want to see, and we basically pay for an opinion, so I can do that. I mean, I know how it works, and I can do it. However, the people sitting in those stands, if I'm training this horse to adopt to them, I've got to kind of train the horse to them. Just because I can do it doesn't mean they can do it. And then where's the advantage, or it's almost a disservice to the horse at that point. I make promises to horses when I'm training them or when I'm creating a relationship with them. And I might just pause and say, I've adopted every Mustang makeover horse I did back. No one else got them
Yeah.
because of those promises. But,
Yeah.
but the thing about it is, yeah, if we're in competitive mindset, we can force compliance to these horses. And is that good for them in the long run? That's kind of up to the person that's doing it. Do they
Yeah.
feel like, yeah, this is no problem? Then that's on them. My perspective is the horse takes second to anything, we're in trouble. And I never wanted to go into that realm. I played with it and toyed with it, but I was too far into understanding how to build a relationship with the wild horse before I did any of that stuff. And I was there for experience more than anything. And then it was comforting to know I was in a creative mindset, and the pressures were off. I get to see what happens to people in a competitive mindset, and it really tears them up. I had really good friends that I competed with, we'll call it, and I watched them have breakdowns right in front of me. And I tried to be consoling and uplifting and help them, because it's a lot of pressure on people to try to compete
Yeah.
against other people. And they see one little perspective of that, and then their mind just carries them all the way away forever, uh, into realms that are uncontrollable. And that's not what it's about. There's healthy competition, don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking Mustang makeovers. I'm not knocking
Right.
competing on horses in any discipline whatsoever. What I would knock is if it tears down the mental wellness in the person or the horse,
Right.
and the end result is trauma that can't be repaired. That's not what we want. That I know great-minded people, great-minded horses competing together and doing wonderful things. And yeah, they got it down, they got it right. So I'm all for it.
It's such a tricky balance because there's something really amazing about seeing someone compete at a really high level or succeed in, you know, just some really amazing feats. But like you say, on the other end, there can be kind of a dark side to that. And so it seems like there's a really tricky balance to um, be able to reach high levels without sacrificing yourself or, in this case, horses. How do you think we can make sure that we're keeping that balance for people who are wanting to compete? I don't compete per se, but as I already said, in my head, I was competing. Even if you're not going into a competition, how do you keep that balance to not be comparing, but still push yourself to improve?
Well, you got to consciously be aware of what you're thinking, feeling, attitude, action. So if you're in a fixed mindset, kind of bracing against change, not willing to change, uh, you got to develop an awareness. You got to become conscious of what mindset you're in. If you're in a growth mindset where you're curious and you want to discover, all the beautiful things horses have to offer us as humans, that's my advice. Go for that, because the most successful competitors I've ever talked with or met, they are in that creative mindset, and they'll rise to levels so much faster and further than those that are in the competitive mindset. That's so
Yeah.
limiting, and it goal oriented. The successful people are in alignment. They're in alignment with their selves and what they present, the feedback they get, the changes are willing to be made in the presentation. Again, horse picks up on that and will perform better for them than they can actually train them to do. I've talked with a lot of people, and they'll say, "Man, yeah, I wanted him." I'll just give you an example. I wanted him to do flying lead changes, but he showed me a much better way, and I didn't train him to do that. He did it on his own. And I know exactly what they're talking about, because I did a camp for children with cancer for 6 years, and those horses would do things for those kids I didn't train them to do. And that's how real it is. If I had to find something that was real in this life, this is the most authentically real thing I've ever played with. Wild Mustang horses and people, and then watching them interact and transformation be made in people. Horses are pretty stable in that, but I've had some traumatized horses where I've helped them, go through transformation and reassess and reperceive things to where they're comfortable and thriving and their lives are enriched. But mostly it's people these days. I have 9 horses, and people come through the gates, and I get to see my own horses that I know very well work. I don't even want to get woo woo, but work magic, work miracles. They'll do things
Yeah.
I can't train them to do.
Yeah. I've seen that too, just in and when I was comparing myself, just how much fear and doubt crept in, even to the point like going back to fixed mindset, which is definitely something my horses kind of taught me to overcome. Because when I was young in school, I did very well. So everything I learned was like, you're smart or you're not, like you either get an A or you don't. And so that's kind of the mindset that I definitely developed just through culture. But that doubt and that fear was definitely a big piece to me and my horsemanship, like thinking, I just don't have what other people have, or maybe um, my horse would be better off with someone else because I don't know how to do this. I'm obviously not very good at it because this is taking us years, not months, type of thing. Um, so yeah, I can really relate to how letting go of that doubt and fear. And you kind of said that that's something you struggled with, doubt and fear, probably early on, I'm guessing. What were some of the ways that you overcame that or learned how to address that in a better way? Because I think, I don't know, for me at least, it's still something that's there, but now I can maybe talk myself down from it better than I could before.
Yeah. So doubts and fear, no one's immune to that. We're all going to go through those type things. The single most important thing is develop an awareness and realizing what you perceive yourself to be presenting to the world and what the world perceives you, and then how far apart those are. Whenever you can realize or become so aware of yourself, doubt and fear, they fall away, or maybe they're just managed. You have ways to manage them because they're going to keep coming back. I mean, I'm not immune to doubt and I'm not immune to fear even to this day, but I can manage it so much better having played with wild horses for so long. Um, I don't even look at doubt and fear the same way. Whenever maybe the emotion comes from, thoughts of doubt or fear, my attitude is triggered to be like, oh, cool, a challenge. We get to figure this out. This is something we're going to grow from. As opposed to before, it might have been, man, I don't know. And then that fear of the unknown was probably worse than the actual thing we're doing. So
Yeah.
it, you want to overcome those kind of doubts and fears. Strap yourself to it and go. It's just that simple. A lot of people, they struggle with that first step. I strapped myself to a wild Mustang horses and I went, and that helped me drop doubt and fears or learn to manage them. And through time, the awareness just becomes so strong, especially in the three things that I really value, and that's mind, body, spiritual connection within myself. Um, Doubt and fear, maybe I just understand the definition better, but there's nothing to doubt. There's just really nothing to doubt. It's an artificial barrier that restricts the mind and then causes tensions in the body. And once you stay centered long enough, you'll start to feel you're coming off that center, and then you can think and do things to become different, which is centeredness. Get back centered, and no struggle, which is enlightenment. So those things, they got to be practiced, and I'll keep referring to my interactive system for predictable results. When I start to feel off center, I know what to do these days to trigger, responses that are going to give me those predictable results. I can give you examples like with horses too. A young horse that may present fear or confusion or doubt, anxiety, I will intentionally do something to trigger a body response of relaxation in the horse so that the brain monitoring the body can tell the brain, hey, free up restrictions of doubt and confusion and anxiety. Take a deep breath, relax, and then allow those processes to catch up and go again. So in doing that, I do that to myself away from the horse.
I mean, you do that with horses where you can kind of show relaxation with yourself and that can go over to them. That's something we can do with other people. That's something that we can do for ourselves where like you say, if we can have the awareness, I think a lot of times we don't have that awareness. We maybe are feeling that stress and anxiety, but we're not attuned enough to ourselves to realize I'm stressed right now. That's why, my heart's racing, I feel ready to explode, or whatever it might be. But if we can recognize I'm starting to get stressed, this is making me uncomfortable, we can kind of take that step back, take a deep breath, change our situation. Kind of all the same stuff that you're talking about, what you do with horses, right?
Absolutely, because a lot of people, when they feel stress or uncomfortable, they look outward for the release. When it's go inward to get the release. When you go inward, you can control that.
Yeah.
Outward, there's no way to control outward. You know, I can't do it. I've tried. I've tried to control a horse. I've tried to control my wife. I've tried to control my kids. I've tried to control outward situations. It's not. We're not able
Yeah.
to do it.
And I think that goes really deep even into our culture that we're looking so much for outside easy fixes in just so many areas that I can think of. When a lot of the times, I would say most of the time, it's something we need to change first with our thinking, which then affects our emotions and which also changes the choices we make for ourselves, the behavior that we have.
Yes, because four things I can control are thoughts and emotion, which is the internal pathway of communication. Attitude and action is an external pathway of communication. In nonverbal communication with horses or humans, if I'm in alignment with all of those things, centered, harmony, which is agreement, balance, I can control myself, which has a great impact on the circumstance or situation I find myself in. Can
Yeah.
almost bend reality when you get there. So people, they'll watch me play with a horse that they've labeled, and I'll do what I'm telling you through the interactive system to get predictable
Hmm.
results. I mean, I'm no wizard, but I've been called that once.
Yeah.
So, but it's
It
almost,
looks like it sometimes when you take a horse that is not reacting well and can almost immediately change it. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Well,
powerful, I think.
at American Mustang School, I designed 5 levels of we go through in horsemanship and practicing horsemanship, and I'll just run
Hmm.
through them real quick. But grooming for mindset, a lot of people groom their horse before they tack up, but are they going inward in their own self and, you know, analyzing what they're thinking and then what they're presenting ultimately? Because whatever we're thinking and doing, we're becoming. So if I want calm, quiet thoughts, I need to be aware if that's what I've got. If I'm in the moment, I need to be aware of that thought. Am I here, or am I thinking about something in the past, or am I anticipating the future? Am I brushing this horse faster than he wants to be brushed because I'm in a hurry? I got to get him in the trailer to get to a clinic or whatever. I mean, I've been there,
Hmm.
I've done it all. So the point is analyze that in level one, we call it, analyze what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what our attitude is, and what we're presenting in action.
Would you also say that for you, that's the first step to awareness, is to be able to take the step back to analyze it, even if you're not really sure how to maybe analyze it well yet?
I'd say at some point, yes. Today, for me, before I'm totally consciously awake, before my feet hit the floor, I'm grooming for mindset. I'm deciding what are my thoughts. Do I want to wake up and complain about something, or do I want to wake up and compliment something? Generally, what we think and do, we become. So if I say, as my eyes wake up, coming back conscious, I'll think this. That's grooming for mindset. Starts before I ever go out there and play with a horse or interact with a human. I do it myself. So my feet are coming out of the bed in process of hitting the floor, and I will make the decision by the time both of them hit. Yes, I want to compliment something today. I want to think about what I want to do and become. So whenever I get up, the first thing I say to my wife, is something positive, something that would create a desire for her to want to sit and have coffee with me. That's the interaction that starts right there. And then I'm analyzing, and it's not hard. I'm not trying to say, oh man, you've really got to do this. you consciously do it, it becomes natural through the subconscious.
Yeah.
So at some point, you've got to like, I got to get a handle on this. But through laws of repetition, it
Yeah.
solidifies into a habit.
And I think you say it's not hard. And when you break it down to where you're doing like one small thing, I think it can become so it's not hard. But I think a lot of times we say, instead of, I'm just going to get up and compliment someone in the morning, we kind of say, I want to be a more positive person. And it seems like we're fighting this battle that's not possible because we're trying to take this big chunk of who we are and these behaviors that we've learned over time again and again and again and try and just change it through sheer force, which I would say is not a very strong power compared to learned behavior.
Yeah. Back in 5 years of age, when I, went through some things, divorced my parents, I started thinking in a different way, obviously. And then I got glimpses of what thinking and doing and becoming would be. And then getting with horses, I got a mirror, basically. It's kind of well known, horses are like mirrors. But
Yeah.
I start playing with a horse, I could see, wow, if I think and do something different, I get a different outcome or feedback. And then circumstances change. So, yeah, as a young age, I got that glimpse. But as we grow, whether you consciously are aware or not, whatever you think and do, you become. So, people get into a ditch or a rut. They're thinking a certain way, they're doing a certain thing, and maybe they just start watching TV a little bit longer each day, compounding effect over time to where they're like, man, I watch 5 hours of TV a day, and then they consciously become aware of like, man, I'm watching 5 hours of TV a day.
Yeah. This
It,
isn't what I want, which seems like the first step maybe
yeah. And
is to
so,
realize this isn't what I want anymore.
yeah. And so it happens the same way. If you consciously say, I want to think and do to become a certain way, has a compounding effect. Years later, you go, wow, I'm so thankful I started thinking and doing, you know, not watching TV because I don't. I'm not distracted. I had time for other things in growth and development. So I become, what I want to become rather than, you know, not consciously thinking and doing and becoming something I don't want to become. Horsemanship, Mustang horsemanship taught me that whatever I think and do and present, I become. That's just that's the way it works. But if I'm not consciously aware of what I'm doing, I'm still becoming something, but I might as
Yeah.
well take control of it. So the four things is how I did it. I would pay attention to what I'm thinking. How do I feel based on that thought? Because thoughts are going to come and go. I can't control the thoughts that come in. They do. What I can control is how I process them. Do I want to think that thought? No, kick it out. I want a different one. Do I want to feel
Yeah.
the emotion based on that thought? No, change it. Take a deep breath, relax a second. Okay, now I got a handle on this. Go forward. I
Yeah.
mean, I'll be sitting on the back of a horse sometimes and trash thoughts will come into my mind and they're so good. They'll do something subtle or obvious to let me know, hey, you've drifted away. Where are you? I'll come back to the moment. And, yep, I'm here. So they're like little guides to help us orient ourselves to become better. That's it. Life enrichment for both horse and human, as long as we follow the rules, follow the philosophies, follow an interactive system to get predictable results. Um, you'll meet or exceed every goal that you have for yourself if you just follow a interactive system for predictable results. I've never not accomplished a goal. Yes, I can train a horse in 30 days to appease a client the right way, but it's because I made all these necessary changes to get the desirable results to where it made me efficient and effective and still kept the horse number one. I'll attract those clients that want that because that comes at a premium. And I'm very thankful for that. So I get paid very well to do that, but it's years and years of practice and experience. And then people don't care what or how or anything like that. They care about the results. So when they see the final result, say it's a 30-day mule or a horse that I train, they go, oh wow, this is not the same animal that I dropped off to you. Of course, I don't let them just drop them off to me these days. They've got to be involved, otherwise, what's the point? But
Yeah.
it's there's so much to these advanced intricacies of horsemanship.
If you want to get a copy of Justin's award-winning book, hop on over to Amazon and search A Horse to Guide Me by Justin Dunn.
The biggest thing that could help Mustangs is, if, and this is my opinion, if there was a safety net put in place to where a potential adopter had education before, during, and after adoption. Mustang horses, they're such a beautiful creature that they deserve a safety net, because there's people that struggle. They're struggling. They need a resource for information to help them. And, as far as retention of a horse, if a person's just like, I don't know where to turn, I don't know what to do, that's a scary feeling for them. And there are a lot of decent people out there like, look, I love this horse, but I know I'm not capable of doing this. I need a resource to help me, or I've got to get someone else that can handle this horse.
Yeah.
So American Mustang School provides that. It's a single resource before, during, and after adoption, to where you can utilize an interactive system to get predictable results and meet your realistic expectations, your goals. And then, some people will say, what is a realistic expectation? And I help them through that. It's generally clarity through engagement and finding that awareness of what their expectations are, and then implementing practices to achieve them. And it's one of the biggest things I think that could help Mustangs and people today not get into trouble. And I've designed a beautiful program, and I've just tested it over the last 3 years on some very high-minded individuals. Elite special operation forces of our military, they only pick the best of those people, guys and girls, and they've come out to my school, and we've implemented horsemanship, research and development. We've monitored body systems in the people. The horses are stable. They're good. Our program never stresses a horse because, again, horse comes first. So, you might hear some organizations are like, oh, we had to take the horse out of the therapy program because he's getting too stressed out. My horses embrace it and love it. It's therapy for them. So therapy for the therapy horse, if we want to call it therapy.
Well,
But
and it
it's
seems like
fucking
it
good.
should be that way. It should be something that you talk a lot about mutual benefit between, meaning that both the horse gets benefit from it and the human gets benefit from it. And so it seems like certainly when therapy is taking place, it should be something that both parties benefit from, not that one is being just strained and pulled on to
Well,
help the other one.
whenever we practice correctly, it's life enrichment for both. See, the horse is just fine out there eating grass and doing what he's
Yeah.
supposed to do. When we invite him into the human element correctly, he gets to take part in something much bigger than himself. He gets to make discoveries in the human element otherwise wouldn't have made. So it's interesting to the horse. It creates a curiosity. And whenever a horse has experiences that, I'll say, challenge them, but intrigue them more than anything to discover more. Just as me, I want to discover more with this horse. Like, what's next? What's the unknown? Where are we going with this? What energies are we tapping into? When the horse is doing that same thing, there's a motivation. They'll have a thought, and then they'll have an emotion, and maybe that emotion is enthusiasm, not to be confused with excitement or spooky or scared, but an enthusiasm to be involved, to step up and do something I can't train them to do, especially for another person. That is huge. That is like, wow, this horse is actually stepping up, doing things I can't train them to do, because it's a reward to the horse. The horse feels rewarded, benefited. Life is better than just standing out there swatting flies, eating grass on the plains of freedom, like we like to call it. But when we ask them to come into the human element correctly, they're still free. I mean, I ground tie my horses. They're free to go. And sometimes they do. It's kind of embarrassing, but it's like, I need you to 10 more
Letting
minutes.
you know how he feels. Yeah.
That's all it is. It's just a outward gesture of what the horse is thinking. They might be bored. They walk off. It's like, well, I've got to engage this horse to create curiosity. I mean, they're just
Yeah.
talking to me. They're telling me what they need. Or maybe they're done. They're like, no, I'm done. I'm bored with this. So we've got to do something different, become more important than what they think is important. So they get a voice. It's not forced compliance. We don't pull them around with a lead rope and make them do anything. It's invite them. It's ask them, and they'll tell you. They'll tell you if yes or no, and then you got to make changes and present again to get desirable results. And then once you get into that feedback loop where it's circular, not intermittent, not interrupted, it flows. What we're doing is an attraction, and it flows willingly. So if I have a place for that information or energy to flow to, they willingly flow there. So it may not even be me. It may be the participant that I have. And see, I've learned my horses, they love that. When I get out of the picture, start fading away and allow them to step up and do what they know they need to do. Oh,
Hmm.
I get to witness something so beautiful. And then the person gets to experience it. The horses experience it. It's just three lives getting enriched in nature. But we're at a school. We're at my horsemanship school. It's
Yeah.
just beautiful. That's probably the best word right there to describe it.
Yeah. What I think is interesting about that is it seems like there's traditional horsemanship and it seems like there's new thoughts and ideas coming out. Um, and I wouldn't say that people are almost too soft, but maybe underestimate the capabilities of horses, where maybe they're like, I don't even want to ride them, or maybe letting the horse direct everything.
Interactive system to get predictable results. You'll have one extreme
Same
to the
answer.
other. Yeah, I'm going to keep
Yeah.
going back to it. You'll have one extreme to the other. Coddle them, don't
Yeah.
let them get it. Don't
Yeah.
do anything.
Exactly.
I'm not saying horses don't even do that to themselves in their own herd. I mean, we as human, if we follow, and I'll say my rules, I'm never going to do anything to that horse that another horse wouldn't do 10 times worse. So,
Yeah.
I had a lady call in one time. She's like, he wouldn't cross this creek. I knew he wasn't scared, and I know he can do it. And I know you don't whip your horses, Justin, but what do I do? And I was like, oh, okay. So if all those variables are lined up, I have split reins on my bitless bridle, split reins.
Hmm.
They're 8 foot long. I will take that tail and I will slap my chaps. It's pretty hard and pop that attention. Like, hey, pay attention. You can go across this creek. I know you're not scared. You're just, being silly essentially, or just
Yeah.
testing the waters. They're like us. They're like, I don't really want to. What are you going to do about it?
Going back to your interaction, they're presenting something and kind of seeing how you react.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll slap my chaps. If that doesn't work, I'll squeeze, I'll bump, I'll kiss, I'll pop them in the butt with the end of that rein. It's like, hey, this is serious. I really am increasing the intensity of this question because I know you're not going to get hurt. I know you know how to do this. And generally, my horses, I don't even have to do that. But at some point, I may have had to in the early days because they will
Yeah.
test you. Like they're like kids. You're like, hey, I wonder if I just to say no. Well, it's like,
Yeah.
well, I'm going to ask you this question, but I may ask in a different way. And then it's just going to be, I'm going to show you the easy way out. It's just going to be a matter of cause and effect at that point. It's like, well, if you don't want to go forward, I'll just ask you to do 6 circles, and then I'll leave you alone when you go forward. And then if you stop, I'll ask you to do 6 circles, and when you go forward, I'll leave you alone. About the third time, they're like, I don't want to do any more circles. I'm just going to walk. It's like, great. We both get what we want. So there's psychology to it as far as reverse psychology, maybe, but there's a psychology to it, and it's based on the individual horse. And you're going to ask them questions they know the answers to, and then you build upon that. So they get to something they're confused on. Of course, I'm not going to increase the intensity of the question to to create more confusion. I'll take them back and ask them a question I know they know the answer to, and then you know show them what they are confused about and the time it takes to get them to understand and not be confused. So getting into the mechanics of training, that we could do a whole nother hour on that, but based
Yeah.
on the individual's needs, I'll tailor that interactive system to get predictable results based on that individual.
Has there ever been a time where maybe a horse told you no, and you adjusted what your expectations were, what your plans were?
all the time.
Meaning like, say the horse didn't want to go across the creek, would you ever just not go across the creek type thing? Or where's that balance that like this is okay to say no, this one we're gonna work through though?
Boy, I got about 10 answers for this one, but I'm going to give you a cool analogy. We could go
Okay.
horses, but I'll go with people.
Okay.
Uh, Height of COVID, wearing masks, wanted to go into Walmart. I wasn't wearing a mask. They wouldn't let me in. Rather than get into any kind of argument or confrontation, I simply asked some questions, and then I basically was like, "So you're not going to let me in?" She's like, "No." It's like, "Okay." So I left, and I just walked to a different door and went in, and that lady didn't care. So it's kind of like this. If a horse doesn't want to cross a creek, I might not get in an argument. I might say, "Okay, don't cross here. Let's go do some figure eights parallel up the creek, and I'm just going to get you close to the creek, and we'll do figure eights. So you get to right eye look at the creek, left eye look at the creek, and we're doing figure eights, and we're not where you said no, because I get it. You don't want to do that. Let's go move up the creek. I'm going to ask you some questions that I know you know the answers to, and then I'm going to leave you alone when you're heading for the creek, and you step in it. Good job. And then we come out of it, and then we step in it, and then we come out of it. Figure eights. So we're going left eye to the creek, we step in it parallel. We go right eye to the creek, we step in it parallel to the creek. I'll never ask a horse go perpendicular if they've already told me no. We're going to parallel it. So I may walk with the creek, they look at it their left eye, or do figure eights, whatever the scenario allows and whatever the individual needs. And then I'll ask them to go parallel to the creek. And before you know it, they're stepping in the creek, coming right back out, stepping in the creek in a different direction, coming right back out. And then they crossed the creek, and then I asked them to cross back over, and then we've crossed it a couple of times in figure eights. So we did figure eights over the creek. And then I'd stop on the other side of the creek, and I ask them, by pausing, "Are you scared now? Did that do it?" And essentially, just by asking questions that they knew the answers to and not focusing on the goal of crossing the creek, I did
Yeah.
an interactive system to get predictable results. They already crossed the creek without blowing their mind, creating too much tension in their body, because I'm allowing them to move. I'm not restraining them, not forcing them to do anything with spurs or whips. It's asking them to walk in the direction they want to. However, I'm asking specific questions I know they know in the figure eights. We've crossed into the creek, but I don't care. I'm asking them to come back out. Before we knew it, we're on the other side of the creek. So just in a summary, I paid attention to the horse's needs. I didn't get them too restricted in the mind, too much fear, too much doubt, too much confusion. I freed up that restriction in the mind to where they could learn something. I created a learning environment by not forcing compliance, asking questions, reduce or eliminate all tension in the body. So by the time we crossed over the creek, we probably did 15 to 20 figure eights beside it, 5 more figure eights into it, 5 more figure eights to cross over it, and then a couple of figure eights on the other side of it, and then do a trigger body responsive relaxation. I'll take a deep breath, relax my shoulders, hips, legs. That transmits to the horse to where we can synchronize thoughts, heart rate, muscles, breathing. And then we accomplished an event. So on the next event, it's going to be less because they know I've got them number one. I'm going to keep them centered and balanced in this training, and they're going to respond quietly, not react chaotically. So they're thinking and they're responding. They're not thinking and reacting. So there's a balance. And I don't focus on any outside influence. I maintain a feedback loop of presenting, observing, making changes, present again, observing, feedback, make changes, present again. And that's that interactive system. I will get the goal of crossing the creek in very short time and not have blown my horse's mind or sweated his body to the point exhaustion. None of that. He can actually think and move and feel, and then each event like that gets less and less to where they may just look up at me and question, like, "Do I have to cross the creek?" And then I'll just subtle little leg cue, "Yeah." And then we cross the creek. It's not even an issue. because they want the easy way out of everything, and we just got to show it to them. So that's everything in us is in that horse. Everything: bones, muscle, blood, heart, guts. We eat food. Everything's the same except one thing. We have a divine mind. We have the ability to create and imagine. So that's when horses help us become better at doing that. We got to get creative. We got to imagine a way to become so much better than what we are presenting that's not working. We present what does work, desirable results. Horses will see that, draw to that, and become something they're not. And then both lives just got enriched.
Yeah. When you talk about that, there's two things that I know for sure have either impacted me or stuff that I still maybe have a hard time knowing for myself. Um, the first one, I guess, is how do you get to the point where you ignore all the outside influences? Because I can see, not now, I think this is something that would have affected me more before, but say you're on a trail ride with a bunch of other people and not start stressing like I'm holding these people up, they're gonna think my horse is ill behaved, letting those thoughts, I guess, get into your head. How do you keep those outside influences outside and I guess not internalize them?
Well, the short answer is develop an awareness. It's the skill that everybody needs to navigate this life healthy, wealthy, and wise, accomplish and fulfill purposes. You won't get there very efficiently or effectively without an awareness. So I choose my enemies wisely. If I'm around other like-minded people and we've already had a conversation about what's important, i.e., the horses, then it really doesn't have an effect on what people think or
Yeah.
what they care about what they think. I've already surrounded myself with those. But to answer your question, how do I navigate not allowing outside influences to affect my inner control of four things: thoughts, emotions, attitude, action? The short answer is practice. And developing 5-part series of communication with horses on the ground before I'm ever on their back, I've pretty much discovered every little detail about that individual in depth, and also have revealed some things about myself in that establishment of feedback loop. I present something as a guide, and then I observe and feedback from the horse, and then I make necessary changes, and then I present again, which becomes a corrective feedback loop on the ground with the horse. As I transfer up to their back, I still continue to do those same things. So I've already prepared the horse, myself, to communicate, to have a circular feedback loop before we ever get into any situation outside of the arena, we'll say, um, or outside of our comfort zone, so to say. So I don't focus on objects like a deer or a bear or a mailbox or a trash truck or other people or other horses. I focus on me presenting to my horse,
Mm,
observing feedback, making changes, do it again. So in any situation that arises, I'm aware if I'm 90% engaged with this horse and 10% engaged with what's going on around me, or if you flip it, I'm 90% engaged with that and 10% of the horse. I can actually
which I
do that.
think is most of the time, I think we're much more focused on the car going by, the next obstacle coming up, what's going to scare them.
Yeah, and see that's playing into the future. That'll never, that's anxiety. That'll never
Yeah.
help. They'll pick up on that energy quick because our body will do something unconsciously, which generally is tense and robotic and gripping with your body, and the horse feels that energy, and then they come up to it naturally. So if we can control our thoughts, emotions, attitude, action, and present to the horse a well-balanced, stable individual, any situation that arises, they'll actually help us do it. They're like, "Hey,
Yeah.
Justin, you're getting a little nervous here. What's going on?" And then it'll call my attention to it, and I'm like, "Oh, you're right. Let me do something to trigger a body response of relaxation in myself." And maybe I ask the horse to do it, which triggers it in myself. And then we get back balanced, in agreement, harmonizing, and then we can go do whatever it is we want to do. But see, as you do this, the horse follows you for who you're becoming. They're observing, they're taking notes, and they're conscious, they're aware. So as we interact, they'll know when we're center and they know when we're not. And they'll help us come center because it's that fluid feedback loop that's circular. They like that. They don't want it intermittent and distorted and confusing. That gets restrictive in their thoughts and tense in their body. So, escalating all the way out to violent behavior of bucking, biting, bolting, kicking, rearing, flipping over backwards, all that. That's because too fast, too soon, way out of alignment, not abiding in laws of nature, no philosophies, no rules, chaos. I'll train a horse for video. It's like watching paint dry. It's so boring. I
Yeah.
can't on videos. It's boring. And I ask people, what do y'all want to see? We want to see you tame down a bucking horse. And it's like, well, I'd have to create a bucking horse for you to see that. I don't even want my horses to know how to buck. So why would I ever get one to do it? So it's kind of like when we can maintain a feedback loop that's so circular, it's so strong, it's so between me and the horse, outside influences have little to no effect on it unless we allow it to. My horses today, I can ride them anywhere I want, any of them, go pick, and we'll go to the town and there's 50,000 outside influences. Sometimes my horses will look up to me for guidance, like, hey, should I be scared of that? What do we do here? Well, if I'm not paying attention and I don't give them, the feedback from me they're looking for, they're going to go into survival mode and do something obvious, like maybe turn a 180 and go the other way. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, you were asking. I was paying attention and I was thinking something else. And I'll just ask them to go back in the direction they were going. And then they're cool. They're like, okay, good. You're not cargo. You're actually a live, living being communicating with me. I watched 5,000 different people ride my horses over the course of a decade. And they were pretty much cargo. And the horses knew the difference. They know the difference. So if I ride one of my horses that's taken 200 different people riding in the mountains of Colorado, they're going to know if I'm paying attention or not. They're going to know if I'm in alignment with my four things and I'm consciously aware in the moment, presenting to them what I expect from them. And they like that because they never drift out of that. They're paying attention right now, all the time, in the moment. So that's why they're so beautiful. That's why they're so therapeutic. That's why they're a gift to heal humanity.
So, okay, this is the other thing I would struggle with, and I feel like I might know the answer that you're going to give to this. But when I come up against something, so I have this new Mustang. She doesn't love people. She's from the Antelope Hills HMA, which I think is in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming. And so, we can do good and I can rub all over. Next time, she's like, I don't want you to touch me or whatever. So one thing I struggle with her is maybe, I'll try something, it doesn't seem like it's working, so then I'm like, maybe what I'm doing is wrong and I need to try something else. How do you know that what you're doing, if you keep doing it long enough, is going to lead to the result that you want? Like, what advice would you know, give me and everybody else that might be
Yeah.
facing something like that?
Well, again, it's tailored to the horse's specific needs. I'm going to learn that horse nose to tail, hoof to ear in 5-part series. I'm going to know what works, what's most efficient and effective to create the desired responses from the horse with the horse. So to answer that, specifically, in a scenario, if I'm trying something that's not working, I'm generally, you got to look at perception and like whose eyes are we right in? What am I labeling right and wrong? Is it weak and strong? It's like, well, they're doing it. It's just weak. Well, we follow the philosophy of 3 days. The concept is the first day. What's what? What did they retain? What do I got to get better at presenting? And then the third day, polish it. Fourth day might be a rest day. Fifth day, come back, start again on the exact same thing we were doing. And 9 times out of 10, if you allow a little time to solidify the processes you were trying to achieve, they get it. So I've never really come into man, I'm doing this wrong. I wonder if I should keep going. Or I'm doing this right. And then something happens where it's wrong. It's so different in my horsemanship as far as what people try to do and try to force. And I mean, I can watch a video or watch a person in action and I can just pick it right then. It's like, oh, well, you're trying to go too fast too soon, or
Yeah.
you had it at 15 minutes. Why did you drill it to an hour? I mean, that's why you got the undesirable result. So some of that comes with experience, but it's really discovering that individual horse. Because some horses you can play with for 45 minutes, they're fine. Some 25 minutes, some an hour and a half. There's, what can we keep this horse engaged on and for how long? So it's a formula. And to give you one quick short answer, it's an interactive system to get
Knew that's what that was going to be included in the
and
answer.
I have that. I've mastered that, and that's one of the things that American Mustang School is excelling at in our area, and people are trailering in from close states, Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida coming in. But it's one of those things that it works. It's not a question. It works, and it's tailorable to people. It's tailorable to horses. All breeds. Mustangs are my favorite, and that's what I focus on the most. But around here where I live, there's all kinds of breeds.
And I guess to put a plug in, which we'll also do it at the end, but you talk a lot about the 5-part series. I know that's something that's like a place where I started with my Mustang, was learning that. And you do talk about it in the book, so that's definitely a source. But where else can people kind of see this, learn from you about this? Now, I know I learned in a group that I joined with you. What's the best way to do it now?
I'm so glad you asked. Well, new for 2024, I've started a weekly Zoom session. It's very private. It's I'm not sure how large it's going to be. This week, February 6th is our first one,
Hmm.
and I've already got 4 people signed up for that. And it probably will remain small because I like to keep things like that small, and
Hmm.
then maybe it'll grow a little bit. But that's the best place because that's exactly what we're talking about. And I am going to store these for about a year so people can still have access to them. And go to my website and to join that Zoom session. But that's exactly what we're talking about. 5-part series. I'll give you a little overview. It's a series of 5 questions you can ask any horse to get a deeper understanding of that horse. The beautiful thing about it is you get a deeper understanding of yourself. The horse will get a deeper understanding of themselves. Horse gets a deeper understanding of us. So it's a feedback loop that's getting established to not only discover but enhance each individual, the person and the horse. It's a mantra. It's something we can always go to when there's any doubt arising, any confusion, anything you don't want. You go and engage in the 5-part series, which is establishing communication. We call it level 2, and that's the key ingredient to establishing that interactive system for predictable results, because we're learning about the individual. It's like picking up your cell phone and calling your horse and like ask him questions. How do you
Yeah.
feel 5 feet from me, wild Mustang? Oh, you're a lot more relaxed there. You don't, not so much at 3 feet. Okay, great. How do you discover that? Well, I
Yeah.
designed a series of 5 questions to ask the horse, where are you most comfortable at distance from me? And question number 1. Question number 2, where are you most comfortable with me, on your left side or your right side? That's 2 and 3 question. Question 4, are you willing to come back to me? Question number 5, will you stand ground tied and relax? I'm going to trigger a body response of relaxation in you. When I drop this rope, it's your benefit, to your benefit. It's also to my
Mm-hmm.
benefit because it's so cool to have a horse that'll ground tie. But it's that 5 questions, and then we pause, breathe together, observe each other for who we are, and then we'll ask those questions again. The horse gets a voice, and then the horse starts thinking, and the horse starts behaving, and the horse starts becoming. And it's a direct reflection of what we're thinking and doing through action and presenting to the horse. In turn, we're becoming. So whatever you think and do, you become. That's it. If you're consciously
Yeah.
thinking and doing, you have a little more control of what you become. If you're not, you pretty much fall victim to whatever you think and do. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the majority of the United States. A lot of people are,
Yeah.
they're just, they're thinking and they're doing, but they're not consciously aware of what it is. They have no interactive system. They don't know how to get predictable results. They don't know why they fail, which no one ever fails. It's temporary defeat. If you quit, you fail. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just not having a system. That's just
Yeah.
that's it. And I've designed it and I've implemented it in the past 3 years, really implemented it into the highest levels of our military and government. And it's tried, true, proven to work 100% on any horse, on any person.
Yeah. And I really feel like that's something we can't emphasize enough because I think it's not an idea. It's maybe an idea that's out there, but I don't know that people really believe it for themselves that you have that control. I've mentioned to you before, I teach psychology, and I have this assignment that students do where they kind of experiment with if they can control their emotions. And some students will be really open to it and they'll come away having gained a lot of skills from this assignment. And I'll have other students whose conclusion at the end is no, you can't change it. And so I think it's really important to realize that you can change your emotions. It's hard when you're in the middle of like a big, strong emotion, but if you can go back to that initial thought, to like where it started and kind of grab it there. You said that even you still have these negative thoughts that might pop up, but you're good enough now that you can like grab it right away, recognize for what it is, and then consciously bring in a different thought.
Well, it's almost like I look at it as a trigger, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So a thought comes in, my emotion changed. I'm aware, and then my attitude might have changed. But by then, it's triggered different thoughts to replace the initial thought, to replace the initial emotion, to where the action is controlled. I'll give you an example. I used to get really upset when people cut me off in traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, it's like, no, maybe their house is on fire. I don't care. So it's just something that simple. And it's through practicing horsemanship that I developed the skill of awareness to control the 4 things I talk about: thoughts, emotion, attitude, action. And then
Yeah.
practicing horsemanship allowed me to identify, wow, that's an internal thing. So I can have a thought and emotion, no one's going to know. But
Right.
reflection of what I do in my action is a reflection of what I've been thinking or am thinking. So if my attitude and my action change, then people can know. So I'm pretty good about controlling myself in any situation. In a big contract negotiation with the government, I'm sitting at a big executive table or whatever. I can do a pushback, so to speak, and go, I don't like these thoughts. I don't like these emotions. I definitely don't like the attitude that I'm getting. So I'm not going to show this action. That's that trigger I'm talking about, to where I'll go replace the thought, replace the emotion, attitude changes, and then the action comes out in something I would desire rather than not desire. And then boom, we land a big contract. So it's like changing myself, presenting what I truly expect, and then almost creating the circumstance I want in humans or horses. So it
Yeah.
gives you this sixth sense that 5 senses are very limited in gaining.
Yeah. That goes really well back with what you were saying with the 5-part series, which is where you've implemented these very basic, small tasks that you've perfected. And it sounds like you do the same thing with your thoughts, where you kind of practice when the stakes weren't high. You know, you practice those things with your horse when you weren't in traffic with five cars going by or whatnot, so that when you did get into that situation, because you had practiced and taken the time to make those small changes, that when it came to those big things, when you're in this big negotiation, you can fall back on those really simple practices of, you know, catching that thought, changing it,
Yep.
kind of looking at how you're feeling and what you need to do to alter that emotion.
Well, horsemanship, Mustangs especially, taught me that I had that muscle and exercised that muscle. And your words were perfect it. I'm still trying to perfect it, but it's so much easier today
Yeah.
than 5 years ago, than 10 years ago, than 20 years ago. It's when you consciously become aware that we have the ability to navigate this life and create circumstances we want. I owe that to the wild Mustang horse. Life is no struggle. You become enlightened. You really can look at life in a whole new perspective. And then other things that were important fall away. And then things that weren't important become important. And then all aspects of our lives change, financial, religion, politics, all of those things are just things. And we can allow them to affect us negatively, positively. It can be a promotion to us or a degrading. And we have that choice. And how much time we want to invest in promoting ourselves to become better, uh, or how much time we want to spend and not. It's just analyzing things for what they are and becoming aware, and then defining it for ourselves according to how it's going to enhance or enrich our lives. You know, just words alone, just using different words can change so much. I play with horses. I don't work them. I've never met a bad horse, bad behavior, but they were just weak in something, and I needed to strengthen it. And
Hmm.
then I found out their strengths, and I utilized them to our both of our advantage. That's like that with people too. We do the same thing. And my life coaching part of horsemanship, people come in and they're in a dark place, and it's just a weakness that they're getting attacked. One of their weaknesses is getting attacked, and they're not sure how to overcome it. I used to have an anger issue that was more defined in doubt and fear. I would get angry about it when I doubted something and couldn't figure it out, or I had a fear about something and didn't know how to manage it. I would get angry, and the anger would come out. So the most beneficial peripheral benefit of practicing Mustang horsemanship is being able to not be angry, not have that loss of control through anger. I guess it's called anger management. But that awareness is something that through practicing you don't fall victim to those things. I don't get angry, and when I do, I know how to come out of it before action really is something I don't want. And for me, when I start to go drifting into that anger, gratitude. I'll override that thought of anger with gratitude. I'll be so thankful for that breath of air I can draw to wait 2 seconds and then recalibrate and go do what it is I needed to do. But, my children, my horses, just being able to overcome what it is I'm in the moment trying to overcome. It's like, oh, this is a cool challenge. I did start drift to anger, but wow, look at me. I'm not angry. I'm actually grateful for this actual thing happening in this moment where most people would be like, this sucks. I'd be like, no, this is not.
Yeah.
This does not suck. This is actually good. I'm going to become stronger. I'm going to find new information. We're mining something here that I wouldn't have got to mine had I not.
I love that. I think that's such a rare mindset, I would even say, these days. And you said a lot of stuff there that would be so great to talk about. But one was not that it's not perfection. It's never perfect. And I think that's important to recognize that you may be working really hard to like change your horse, change your thoughts, change whatever, and it's not always going to go your way. And that's okay if you fall, if you make a mistake, if you let your thoughts run away, if your horse spooks in traffic. Well, maybe not traffic, but if your horse spooks, if your horse spooks at a rabbit, don't want it running into traffic. Um, just that we always have the chance to come back and change it. And for me, like I said, that fixed mindset, like I would really run with that and be like, no, I just, can't do it. I messed up. I don't know what I'm doing. Other people just have more talent at it or whatever it might be. But almost always it's practice. It's keeping going, especially when it's hard. And I love the other thing you said about it makes a difference, just our view of how we look at it. I think in the world today, we see a lot of, like I talked a little bit about before, a lot of blame conversations about how things are the fault of something outside of ourselves. And whether that's true or not, which I think is a really hard principle, whether something outside of us did cause something bad to happen, still the answer is to look at what we have control over. And we don't have control over other people and a lot of the things around us. We can't make someone apologize for something, that we were hurt by or whatnot, but we can choose the way we look at that, whether that's okay, well, now I know I don't want to go out riding with these people because I felt really bad when, I was criticized because I was having to learn and work through something. Um, and so I think that's such an important message, just that we do have so much we can control, but it's almost all internal.
Yep. Yeah. That you said it beautifully because that's exactly what it is. Internal. We're a living being, and outside influences are going to come into our eyes, our ears. We're going to process that information, and how we process it is up to us. And if we're consciously aware of ourselves and we exercise our right to make choices, sometimes it's tough because you don't have information. So there's always information available. We have to proactively go get it. We have to think and do to become. The guys that built the airplane that flies through the air right now, that has the internet and air conditioning, that didn't just come about. These guys mined resources within themselves and compiled information, made different choices to what we see now, the airplane. All the things are available. My point, all the things are available that we need. We just have to proactively go think and do to become and get them. It's a lifelong journey, to
Yeah.
discover. And in doing that, that's what the fun part of life is for me. It's like, stay curious. What's the unknown? What's out there? What's around the next corner? That keeps me so curious. And horsemanship, I think, enhance that or maybe spark that in me, speaking for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I relate to that also because I think one thing that horsemanship does for me is it takes me away from the cultural part that for me always included a lot of shoulds. You should be this, you should act like this, you should get good grades, you should, get the job, go to work. All those things that we should do. I feel like when I'm with horses, a lot of that falls away. And I think because you don't have all those external pressures, if it is just you and the horse, and you can kind of either, whether it's you're in a situation where there's not a lot of people and other things around, or you can just do that mentally where you can tune out all those noises and stuff. But for me, with the horse, that happens really naturally that it's almost like I know myself better. I can maybe you talk about like kind of coming to know the horse. I feel like we have to do that for ourselves as well because it gets so boggled down in like the culture and what we should be doing and the box that we should fit into. With the horse, it seems like that can kind of fall away and it can be, more authentic, more true to ourselves and how we really feel internally. That's almost fought against a lot when we're in just society.
The scripture talks about proving all things and hold on to what's good. And then whose eyes are we right in? Are we right in other people's eyes? Are we right in our own eyes? Are we right in the horse's eyes? Those are developed through interaction, awareness, clarity through engagement to gain awareness, utilizing techniques that do work to gain this awareness. No one's up there with us on our horse when we're riding or when we're gone. So their opinions and their whatever influence should not matter. It really doesn't matter. So what's true and honest does matter. And when you go inward and you align and present to that horse, and you are okay with changing based on feedback, because the horse is only going to give you the truth. They don't have a reason to lie. They're going to give you what's true and honest back. You process that, and then make the necessary corrective changes, present again, and then you get into that feedback loop to where outside influences have little to no effect on it. And then do you know how you prove it and know that it's right? It works, and it works desirable, and it enhances and it enriches. You feel it, you know it. It's so true and honest, you wouldn't want to do anything else, regardless of what someone says. I went up against that a little bit, in the early days of going bitless and making changes in a culture that I was in where people had traditional practices and, they wore spurs and they dominated their horses and looked at animals beneath them, cattle, horses, whatever. When I said, look, I'm going to prove this. Is that true? And then I just made a hard, fast decision. No, it's not true. Our animals are equal. They're not beneath us. They serve a purpose on this life just like we do. They need to fulfill it. And we should not obstruct that or create an irritation in that. And they're designed for certain things to fulfill their purpose. So they're thinking in that realm is only going to inhibit advancement. It's going to inhibit the ability to grow and develop and fulfill the purposes we are all called to do. And we can go dive deep on all that. But when I made that change for myself, I didn't really care what other people thought anymore. It's like, no, I'm going to ride my Mustang in a bitless bridle, and I'm going to ask them questions. I love bitless bridle because I took over 5,000 people trail riding on my horses, and they never once yanked on my horse's mouth and caused them pain. So why wouldn't I love it? My horses love it, and I love my horses. So I have an extreme knowledge in this. And whenever a horse focuses on pain, that's just where his attention went. And I want my horses to focus on me and the questions I'm asking, not the equipment I'm using to ask it with. So very well to what a person's opinion is. I want them to focus on me, not what that person's opinion is. So outside influences have little to no effect on our relationship. Of course, if I'm wrong in something, I'll listen to someone, and if I prove it to be, I'll change. Man, I want the best for myself. I want the best for my horses, and I want the best for the people that I share horsemanship with. So I'm open. I'm not just fixed mindset on I'm not going to listen. If somebody can prove to me like, no, the bit enhances the horse's mouth, you need to use it. I may change. But no one's ever come forth and proven it to me. They'll have some excuses and this and that. I use a bit and I don't hurt my horse. Well, okay, good. That's you and your horse's feedback loop. Great. I'm going to teach my horses according to me and the information I have privy to. And then I'm going to teach other people with my horses how to interact based on the information I'm privy to. So I follow rules, philosophies, beliefs, and an interactive system to get predictable results, and it never fails.
I know the title of the podcast. I think you did bring up some really key points that I found to also be true. And one was you have to get to the point where you don't care what other people think.
No.
That that was like a huge thing for me. I remember when I was just saddle training my first Mustang and we hadn't been out on the trails much. There was someone who offered to come over and we were going to ride with them, and she hadn't really been. Actually, this was probably a little bit down the line because I had my second Mustang, but she hadn't been around other horses a lot. And I kind of told myself, you know what, if she's not comfortable and if she's hyped up, like I'm not going to ride her. We're just going to walk. And I'm pretty sure the person I was with, so my daughter and I went with a friend and his kids, and I'm pretty sure he thought I was an idiot because I was walking my horse, but I was at the point where I was like, I don't care. I want this to be a good experience. I don't want something bad to happen. And also, I kind of know what I can handle anxiety wise. And if we're ready for this, which I didn't feel ready, and I wanted to kind of gauge that and be open to her not so committed that like we were going to ride this. So I really think for me, that's been a huge thing to not care what other people think to get to that point where it's not much of an influence at all. And then the other thing that has made a difference for me, you talked a lot about how you were taught a pretty harsh way to train horses. And when I first got my Mustang, there were different ideas and things. I would kind of look around at the different horse trainers, and some stuff to me felt really good and right. And then there were other things that I just personally it just didn't seem like it was right. I feel like this kind of goes to maybe a sixth sense that we have, like something internally that's trying to direct us in a better direction that the outside forces maybe aren't telling us. But for me, that was a big thing. And that was something that I was really attracted to when I found your training, is that a lot of it seemed to resonate more with how I wanted to have the relationship with my horse. And I think another important point, you said that you would listen to some people if they had good information to give you. And I think it's really important when we're looking to where we get information. Is it from someone who's doing what we want to do and in the way we want to do it? And I think that has a huge impact. If we're looking to someone who's already done kind of what we're wanting to do and that they've been able to do it effectively in a way that we can feel good about. I think that's what I found when I ran into your training methods and your all the things that you taught.
Yeah, it's we're social creature. We're supposed to interact, and we gather with like-minded believers, and there's strength in numbers, and that's the way I am building American Mustang School right now. I'm gathering a community of people that have a centered desire for life enrichment for horses and people. I mean, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. But the wild Mustang, especially, and then the military, are my two passions. But
Hmm.
the thing about listening to other people, it goes back to prove all things, hold on to what's good. Because I've learned some of the
Hmm.
best things from the worst people as far
Yeah.
as where they were at that time. Now, everybody can grow and develop and change and become something different. But certain times that you align or your paths cross, so to speak, um, I don't really like to judge anybody. It's kind of like, well, where they are today, I don't agree with that, and I'm not going to implement that. But then I've crossed paths with them later, and they'd changed, and it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. I'll do that too. So it's that openness and that creative mindset that is going to be much more of an advantage than a disadvantage. And outside influences, they go back to what you process them as. You can control those as you take them in through your eyes, your ears, and process them. You can say, through those two senses, you can say yes or no. It's just that simple. And
Yeah.
humans, we like to create our own worry. Create our own aversions, I guess is a better word. We care what other people think when generally they're not even thinking about us.
Yeah.
We're not even on their radar. So it's like, pay attention to ourselves. you know, got to take care of ourselves first, or we can't take care of anything else. So, mentally, physically, spiritually, we have to be strengthening ourselves every single day, and then presenting to the world, and then observing feedback from the world, making changes, do it again. I mean, that's how it works. And people can have a choice. They can either do it or don't, or they can consciously do it or not. And at the end of the day, whatever you think and do, you become. It's just that simple.
Right. Yeah, we really do create our reality through our thoughts. It goes back to how we were talking about how they label horses. For a lot of people, Mustangs are seen. I remember when I was thinking about getting a Mustang, people would tell me that's such a bad idea. They're so dangerous. Um, and so for many people, we really do create the reality through the words we use, through our perception and the thoughts that we allow into it. And which is a really powerful principle, I think, because that means that we can create any reality we want, really. We can, like you say, look at these hard things that are happening and say, this is great. I get to learn something new. Um, I think that's having that creative mindset is a challenge, though.
Yeah, it could be. Um, but think of it this way: developing a creative mindset is staying curious. And all of us that, well, I shouldn't speak for everyone, but most of the people I know that got into Mustangs was a sheer curiosity. Like, what is it be like? What is it going to be like? Wow, they're so majestic. There was a draw or a pull, and I think
Mm,
it's much bigger than just the Mustang. I think it's that information that we're all longing for, that to
yeah,
flow into us, to give us answers. The three answers everybody wants: where did we come from, why we're here, where are we going? And horses, they have the ability to create some sort of a conduit to discover that. And the wild ones, especially because they haven't been domesticated and atrophied in a lot of the things Mustangs haven't. That unknown is such a draw. I mean, man has to create. I mean, I know. Okay, I'm going to say something that may make some people mad, or whatever. But I know we haven't gone to the moon. We would have built something up there already. We want to create stuff.
that is really true that we always want to create.
No,
That's funny.
I'm just joking about the moon thing. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
we didn't, but it's
I don't know either. I wasn't there, but
it's one thing I've figured out in my short little life. Community of people is important. Everyone wants to be competent in what they're doing. Everyone wants to be authentic in what they do and know. Um, and they want to be part of something that they're contributing to that's valuable, a community. They want to be
yeah,
part of a community that they're valuable in. And horses are the same way. They have a community. They want to be competent at what they're doing, and they're already authentic. But people, there's an element to people that when they drift out of that conscious awareness of what they're thinking and doing and becoming, they're susceptible to things that they don't want, and neither does society. I mean, we can go to the
yeah,
extreme of you know we'll just call them bad behavior people. We don't want that. We want good behavior people, and we want mentally well people. We want happy people. People find joy in what they do day to day, and we want to be surrounded by those type of people. And horsemanship allows people to. I mean, I've found a streamlined way for people to do that, and
yeah,
that's a powerful thing. That's a very profound thing to be a part of, to see what these wild horses can actually do for humanity. In my opinion, they're called to heal broken man.
yeah. I've found the same thing, and I think you talk a lot about awareness, and I don't know if I would have labeled it like that before conversations with you, but there is just this chance to be with horses that really get you out of all those external influences that are maybe promoting, things that aren't so good, whether it's wasting time on pursuits that have no value at the end. You mentioned watching TV or whatever, social media these days, and just how by having that time with them, we kind of can come back into awareness of ourselves. It's almost like we get, if you don't have that in some form, it's so easy to get so sucked in to the culture and just the information constantly being thrown at us that it's very confusing, I think.
Yeah. And my advice to anybody that's in that situation where they got some confusion about it, uh, make a change, but make small changes and try it for
Yeah.
7 days. And no, nothing in 7 days is working. Change, try something else. People say, I want to adopt a wild Mustang horse. It's like, okay. And I'm gonna train this horse in 30 days and this and that. And it's like, all right, good. That's a good plan. Have you written down what you're going to do day to day and like a training log? And then as you do it, check it off and make some changes. And they're like, no, but I got it all in my mind to do this. I'm going to do it. And it's like, yeah, I love your enthusiasm, but you're probably not going to do it because you haven't been doing it. You go from zero to
Yeah.
too much, too fast, too soon. It's kind of like with the horses, it'll unravel pretty quick. So you got to set realistic expectations or have realistic expectations to set
Yeah.
goals, but follow through with the cycles that it takes to do it. And then it's much easier, to create a flow of, information, thinking, doing, creating a habit that'll solidify and abiding in those laws, understanding them. A lot of people don't understand what laws are there. Law of compensation, which is time. It takes the time it takes. You go plant a seed and you can't run out there in 3 weeks
There,
expecting it to be.
there's no substitute for
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a formula it takes. So there's like dirt, water, sunlight,
Hmm.
time, wind. All these things have to happen when they happen. So in horse training, a wild Mustang, the person has to start getting in alignment to create an efficient and effective way of doing it. That's what I studied and tried to master in the mountains. That's why I can take a wild horse and ride them in 3 to 5 to 8, 10 days. When comparing, some people say, "Man, I'm not even on my horse, and it's the 111th day." That's
It's been a
okay.
year. It was
That's
a year
okay.
for me.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
okay. That's a beautiful story that you have that to tell.
A- And what you're not accounting for, what I wasn't accounting for, is that you put in your year. It was just in a different way. That time of learning, like we said, there's no substitute for it. You put in your time, it was somewhere else. And now I'm just seeing these results and wondering, why am I not getting these same results
Yeah.
when I haven't put in all that time and effort? And I think that's one of the best things people can do to help Mustangs is if you're willing to put in that time to learn about them so that you can do it yourself. I know a lot of them end up in not great places because it's not I wouldn't say it's an easy process until maybe you've learned it down the line. Now I think I would know a lot more if I got a brand new horse, but I mean, this is 8 years later now.
Yeah.
So, it's not an instantaneous process, but I do think it's a huge opportunity to learn, and because it is difficult, you gain so much from it.
Man, I want to tell your audience how impressive you are. Six
Aw.
children, dragon baby, and I'm gonna get me a Mustang. I mean, there's people that have priority lists. And you just like took that, threw it in the trash, and be like, here we go.
I know. I'm almost embarrassed because I'm like, I look back now, what was I thinking? Like, I don't know. I don't know,
Go
going for
for
it,
it.
I guess. But
Go for it. Yeah. Well,
yeah, but it took a lot on the other side, It was easy getting the horse. On the other side, yeah,
well,
it was
that's
a
the
long process.
that's the common thing I see in Mustang people is they're different people. They're go-getters. They're like, I'm gonna step out and do this. I'm gonna go into the unknown. And it's not for everybody. I'll say that. I would love for
Yeah.
everybody to experience the wealth of knowledge that comes from it. But I have good friends. They're never going to be training a wild Mustang. No way. But
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah. It's a neat experience if it calls you. I would just say if you feel like this is the thing for you, but do your work and take your time because it's probably the place I've learned more lessons than almost anywhere else in my life, maybe anywhere. Trying to figure it all out.
Well, before we close, I'd like to give some good advice.
Yeah.
If a person's listening and they're considering training a wild horse or they got one and they're stuck, get a mentor, get a coach. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid to do that, because a good mentor or a good coach has invested the time it takes, thousands and thousands of hours, tens of thousands of hours. They'll save you so much time. You'll learn 3 years of information, but won't be 3 years older when you get it. And
Right.
that's the best advice. And prove all things. Hold on to what's good and what works for you. And if it's not jiving, dust your feet, move on, and get a different mentor, or get a
Mm-hmm.
different coach. But it's one thing that I didn't do. I'm giving advice right now that I didn't do. I didn't go get a mentor or a coach in horsemanship. I just went straight to the horse, and
Yeah.
I was fortunate that it worked out the way it did. But I just, everything aligned for me to be able to do that. I'm in the mountains. There's no coaches, so I
Yeah.
acquired these free horses, and happened to be Mustang, and 14 days to touch them, and then I had some horse experience, but it wasn't good information that I knew wasn't good information, so I had to discover it on my own. But it probably took more time than it really would have if I had gotten a mentor. But
Yeah.
for me, it didn't align that way. But I am here to say, I listen to mentors now, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily on horsemanship or horse training, but on coaching people, because I got real good at horses, but I wasn't necessarily good at people. And today, I listen to mentors explain how to be good with people. And if you want to be great, you got to help many, and that's people. Trade in value is people. You want to earn money in horsemanship, you need people, because horses will not give you a dollar. People.
Yeah.
That's important, and it's one of those things, going into it. Before adoption, during adoption, and after adoption. Get a mentor that you trust and that can coach you and give you the information you need to be efficient, effective, and reach the goals that you want.
Yeah, and you talked a lot about the importance of community and then surrounding yourself with people who help you in positive ways. And I think that's something I've also found true. And at the same time, I think it's something that we're both working on creating. I know that's your intention with like your Zoom meetings, right? And you talk about a mentor, and I can attest that you were a really good mentor for me. I still did a lot of it on my own, but there were times when, like I just needed that boost, um, or I just needed this piece of information, a place where I was stuck. And so I 100% agree with that. And I think that you're a great resource that people can be pointed to for that. Links to how people can find you and take advantage of the work you do. And I know you have paid content, you also have free content you offer.
Yep.
So there's lots of different ways
Yeah.
to kind of get more information.
Yeah. AmericanMustangSchool.com is the website. And then we have American Mustang School on YouTube. That'll be free content. And then weekly Zoom sessions for direct access to me, just kind of like this. And
Hmm.
that'll be a group. And that's paid content. And then I have a Facebook group. You can find that through my website.
Yeah, and that's one thing that helped me a lot was the Facebook group. Definitely one that I would recommend people, where they can connect with their horses in a really deep way, but at the same time making progress and doing those things that you dream of. I know for me, for so long, it was a dream to like take my kids out riding these horses, and I'm doing it now. And like I say, it's been, that was 8 years ago when I started, but it's so cool to, yeah, to be on the other side of it and see it. And it wasn't easy at all. There were a lot of obstacles in the way, but it really is possible to get to the place you want to be.
Well, if you believe it, if you think it and you believe it, you can achieve it. Here's how I
Yeah.
know it's true. It's called A Horse to Guide Me. And in that book, I kind of reference what you're talking about there, where if you think it and you believe it, you can achieve it. And I don't want to spoil that story in the book with a Mustang of mine, Moonshine, but I don't necessarily even want to ride with a bitless bridle. I don't want to ride with a saddle. And I have another Mustang that a lot of people know. She's more famous than I'll ever be, but her name's Cinnamon. And I can get on that horse, and when I'm in a total alignment, I can ride her bridleless and bareback, and we can go anywhere in the world we want to go. And outside influences will have zero effect on our feedback loop. And of course, a layman watching that is like, that's amazing. How do you do that? Uh, but it's based on, if you listen to the last 2 hours of this podcast, it's based on inner self-control and timing, rhythm, presentation to the horse to get the feedback, knowing that horse as an individual and putting them number one. And they'll take care of me when I need them to the most.
Yeah. Definitely don't be afraid to think outside how you think it all should go. Have that creative mindset where you, yep, are ready to try things that don't seem like they maybe make sense.
That's right. Well, thanks for having me on this podcast, Shaylise. I'm so proud of you for doing this. So many people need this. This is good.
Thank you. I'm super excited about it, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate your support and encouragement. I feel like we could do this again and dig deeper into some stuff down the line if you're up for it. So
let's do it. My favorite subject.
Thank you for joining us and learning about horses that heal and the humans who help them. We hope you'll continue with us on this journey. We'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite platform and follow The Touch of a Mustang on any of the major social media outlets. Please share with your friends, anyone who loves horses, or anyone who might be struggling and could benefit from this message. If you have felt the healing power of horses or help them in their divinely appointed mission, please reach out. We want to hear your story. As we say goodbye, always remember that the horse is always there to help you heal.